What if the biggest thing holding your life back is not failure, not lack of talent, not even bad luck, but a quiet place that feels warm, safe, and familiar? A place where nothing hurts enough to force you to change and nothing challenges you enough to help you grow. And if you are listening right now, feeling comfortable but strangely unsatisfied, calm on the outside but restless somewhere deep inside, then stay with this story, because you may recognize yourself in ways you did not expect. There was a young man named Daniel who believed he was living a normal, responsible life. He had a steady routine, a predictable income, and days that passed without chaos or risk. He woke up each morning at the same time, followed the same streets, spoke the same safe conversations, returned home to the same small distractions, and every night he told himself that one day he would do something bigger. One day he would chase the dream that quietly lived in his heart. One day he would become the version of himself he imagined when no one was watching. But that day always felt far away. Because comfort has a soft and patient voice, it never pushes. It only whispers that tomorrow is always available. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Months passed peacefully. People around him praised his stability. Family members called him sensible. Friends said he was lucky to avoid struggle. And Daniel slowly began to believe that avoiding risk was the same thing as building a future. Yet in rare, silent moments, usually late at night when distractions faded and honesty became harder to escape, he felt a strange heaviness he could not explain. Not pain exactly, not sadness exactly, but the quiet feeling of a life not fully lived. He tried to ignore it by telling himself he should be grateful that many people had less, that dreaming too big only leads to disappointment. And for a while those thoughts worked, because comfort is very good at creating convincing excuses. It makes average feel safe, and safe feel wise. Until years begin to pass, and the cost slowly becomes visible. Daniel stopped trying new things because beginners feel awkward. He stopped learning difficult skills because effort feels tiring after work. He stopped speaking about his dreams because saying them out loud creates responsibility. And without realizing it, he built a life designed to protect him from failure, but also perfectly designed to prevent growth. Time did not disappear in a dramatic way. There was no single moment of loss, just ordinary days stacking quietly on top of each other. Weeks turning into months, months turning into years, until one evening something small but powerful happened. He met an old friend he had not seen in a long time. The friend looked different, not in clothes or status, but in energy. There was confidence in the way he stood, purpose in the way he spoke, and a calm strength that Daniel could not remember seeing before. And when they talked, Daniel discovered that the friend's life had changed completely. New challenges, new opportunities, new direction. Not because life became easier, but because he had chosen a harder path. Daniel asked the question that had been quietly forming in his mind. He asked what caused the change, expecting to hear about luck or connections or sudden success. But the friend simply smiled and said something that sounded simple yet felt deeply uncomfortable. He said, "Nothing changed until I became tired of being comfortable." Those words stayed with Daniel long after the conversation ended, repeating in his thoughts during the quiet walk home, becoming louder in the silence of his room. Because for the first time he saw comfort from a different angle, not as peace, but as a slow trap that steals possibility without creating fear. That night, he could not sleep easily. Memories of old dreams returned, moments when he once believed his future could be different, and he realized something painful but honest. Nothing outside had destroyed his direction. He had slowly traded his future for comfort, one easy decision at a time. The next morning did not feel magical. There was no sudden motivation, no dramatic energy, only clarity. And clarity can be more powerful than excitement, because it shows truth without decoration. He saw clearly that waiting for the perfect moment was only another way of hiding, so he made a very small decision, almost invisible from the outside. He woke up 1 hour earlier than usual and used that quiet time to begin learning something he had postponed for years. It felt uncomfortable, slow, even frustrating. His mind wanted the old routine back. His body wanted more sleep. Distractions called his attention, and nothing about the process felt immediately rewarding. But deep inside there was a new feeling beginning to grow, a quiet sense of movement. Days passed and the struggle continued. Some mornings he almost quit, telling himself it was pointless, telling himself he was too late, telling himself comfort was easier, and comfort was always ready to welcome him back. But something had changed. Even when he rested, he could no longer ignore the truth he had seen. 1 hour became 2. Small effort became a fragile habit. And although the world around him looked exactly the same, something inside him was slowly waking up. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just steadily, like a light returning after a long darkness. If this story feels familiar to you, if a part of you knows what it means to feel stuck in a life that is safe but not meaningful, then take a second right now to like this video and subscribe to English It, because these stories exist to remind you that change is still possible, and your simple action helps this message reach someone else who may be silently struggling. Daniel did not know where this new path would lead. He only knew that staying the same was no longer peaceful. And for the first time in years, uncertainty felt more honest than comfort. And although fear was still present, it no longer had complete control. He was not suddenly confident, not suddenly successful, but he had taken the smallest and most important step any human can take. He had stepped slightly outside the place that was slowly destroying his future without making a sound. And this was only the beginning. The strange thing about stepping outside your comfort zone is that the world does not immediately reward you for it. There are no sudden celebrations, no dramatic music playing in the background, and no instant proof that your effort will matter. Instead, there is silence, resistance, and long days where progress feels invisible. And this is the moment where most people quietly return to the safety they were trying to escape, because discomfort without quick results feels frightening, uncertain, and lonely. Daniel felt this deeply in the weeks that followed. The early mornings were still difficult, learning still felt slow, and doubt still whispered that none of this would change his future. Yet something inside him had shifted in a way he could not undo. He had seen the truth about his comfort, and once truth is seen clearly, pretending becomes exhausting. Some days he failed to wake up early and the old routine pulled him back. But instead of giving up completely like before, he tried again the next morning. And this small difference between quitting and returning quietly began to reshape his identity. Because real change is not built on perfection. It is built on persistence that survives disappointment. As months passed, the habit that once felt unnatural slowly became normal. The same hour that once felt painful began to feel peaceful. The same effort that once felt pointless began to show tiny results. And although those results were too small for the world to notice, they were powerful enough for Daniel to feel. And sometimes that is where transformation truly begins. Not in applause, but in private evidence that you are no longer the same person. He started reading more, thinking differently, paying attention to opportunities he had ignored for years. And with every small improvement, his confidence grew quietly. Not loud confidence that needs validation, but calm confidence that comes from keeping promises to yourself. Still, the journey was not smooth. There were moments of deep frustration. Moments when progress stopped. Moments when fear returned stronger than before. And one evening after a long, difficult day, he almost decided to quit everything and return fully to the comfort he once called peace. Because comfort always waits patiently, ready to welcome you back without judgment. But that night something important happened. He remembered the question that once haunted him in silence. Is this really the life you wanted? And for the first time he answered honestly, no. That single honest answer became stronger than his fear. And instead of quitting completely, he made another small decision. He decided that even if success never came quickly, he would still choose growth over comfort, because at least growth made him feel alive. This decision did not remove difficulty, but it gave meaning to difficulty, and meaning can carry a person through pain that comfort never could. Slowly, opportunities began to appear. Not miracles, just doors that had always existed but required courage to open. Conversations that led to learning, learning that led to skill, skill that led to possibility. And Daniel realized something powerful. The world had not changed. He had changed. And because he changed, everything looked different. The same streets now felt full of direction instead of routine. The same mornings felt full of intention instead of repetition. And the same future that once looked small now felt open, uncertain, and alive. People around him began to notice subtle differences. The way he spoke, the way he carried himself, the quiet determination in his actions, and some supported him, while others questioned him, because growth often makes comfortable people uncomfortable. And not everyone understands a path they are afraid to take themselves. There were still setbacks, still fears, still moments of doubt. But something fundamental had shifted. He no longer measured his life by how safe it felt. He measured it by how honestly he was trying. And that change created a kind of peace, deeper than comfort. A peace built on movement, effort, and truth. If you are still listening, maybe it is because a part of you is standing at the same invisible doorway Daniel once faced. The doorway between easy and meaningful, between safe and alive. And before this story continues, take a moment to think about one small step you've been avoiding. One action that feels uncomfortable but important, because that step may be the beginning of a completely different future. Daniel did not become successful overnight, but he became something more important first. He became responsible for his own direction. And once a person takes responsibility, change is no longer impossible. It is only a matter of time, patience, and courage repeated daily. He was still walking forward, still uncertain, still learning, but he was no longer asleep inside comfort. And that alone was already transforming his future in ways he could not yet fully see. And the most powerful part of his journey was still waiting ahead. The most powerful transformations in life rarely arrive with noise. They grow quietly beneath the surface while the world continues as if nothing is changing. And Daniel did not fully realize how far he had come until one ordinary morning felt completely different from the life he used to live. He woke up before the alarm, not with pressure, but with purpose. Not with fear, but with a calm readiness that once felt impossible. And in that simple moment, he understood something deeply important. Discipline had slowly replaced comfort as the force guiding his days. Months of small effort had reshaped his thinking, his habits, and even the way he saw himself. And although he was still far from the dreams he once imagined, he was finally moving toward them instead of waiting for them to arrive. Progress was still slow, challenges were still real, and uncertainty had not disappeared. But uncertainty no longer felt like an enemy. It felt like space where growth could happen. One afternoon he received an opportunity connected to the skill he had been quietly building. Not a perfect opportunity, not a guaranteed success, just a small opening that required courage to accept. And for a brief moment, the old fear returned, reminding him of risk, reminding him of possible failure, reminding him how easy it would be to stay where everything felt safe. But this time something inside him was stronger than fear, because he had already practiced choosing discomfort in small ways every day, and those small choices had prepared him for this larger one. He said yes, even while feeling uncertain, and that single word became a turning point more powerful than any dramatic event, because real turning points often look simple when they happen. The path that followed was not easy. There were mistakes, long nights, moments of doubt, and times when he questioned whether he was ready. Yet every challenge carried a strange sense of meaning he had never felt inside comfort, because struggle in the direction of your dreams feels different from struggle inside a life you never wanted. Slowly, effort began to create visible results. People started respecting his dedication. New doors opened through persistence, and the future that once felt distant began to feel real. Not perfect, not secure, but real and alive. One evening, after finishing a long day of work that once felt impossible for him to imagine, Daniel sat alone in quiet reflection and thought about the version of himself who had been afraid to leave comfort. The version who believed safety was the same as peace. The version who kept postponing life for a tomorrow that never came. And instead of judgment, he felt gratitude, because that past version had still found the courage to take one small step forward. He realized something that many people never understand. Comfort itself is not the enemy, but living inside it for too long slowly disconnects you from who you could become. And the future you dream about can only be reached by walking through uncertainty, effort, and growth. Maybe you are hearing this story at the exact moment you need it. Maybe a quiet part of you knows you are meant for more than routine, more than waiting, more than a life that feels safe but empty. And if that feeling exists, even slightly inside your heart, do not ignore it, because small awareness can become powerful change when you act on it. Before this story closes, take a moment to write in the comments the one goal you've been afraid to start, and share this message with someone who feels stuck in their comfort zone, because sometimes a simple story can open a door that logic never could. Daniel's life did not become perfect. Success did not remove difficulty, and fear did not disappear forever. But he had discovered something far more valuable than comfort. He had discovered direction, purpose, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are no longer hiding from your own potential. Years later, when someone asked him what truly destroyed his future in the past, he answered honestly, nothing destroyed it. I almost gave it away by staying comfortable too long. And when they asked what saved it, he smiled gently and said one small, uncomfortable step taken at the right time. And now this story reaches you, not as pressure, not as judgment, but as an invitation. A reminder that your future is still waiting outside the place that feels safest today. The beautiful truth is simple and powerful. It is not too late to begin, not too late to grow, not too late to become the person you once imagined in silence. As long as you are willing to step beyond comfort and walk, even slowly, toward the life that is still possible for you. What many people never see is that the real victory in Daniel's journey was not money, recognition, or even success itself. It was the quiet moment when he stopped being afraid of his own potential. Because the greatest prison is not failure. It is the fear of discovering what your life could become if you truly tried. As time moved forward, Daniel continued facing challenges that tested his patience, discipline, and belief. And there were still days when exhaustion returned, when progress felt slow again, and when the old voice of comfort softly suggested that life would be easier if he stopped pushing so hard. But something fundamental had changed inside him. He now understood that ease without purpose feels heavier than effort with meaning. And that understanding gave him strength that comfort never could. He began to notice how differently he experienced life compared to the past. Mornings were no longer something to survive, but something to use. Difficulties were no longer proof of weakness, but proof of movement. And uncertainty was no longer darkness, but space where new possibilities could appear. The same world that once felt small now felt open, not because circumstances had magically transformed, but because his mindset had expanded beyond the invisible walls he once accepted as permanent. There came a day when he returned to the old neighborhood where his routine life had once repeated endlessly. The same streets, the same buildings, the same quiet familiarity. Yet everything felt different, because he was different. And standing there, he realized a powerful truth. Nothing outside had truly been holding him back all those years. The real barrier had been the comfort he protected and the fear he never questioned. Instead of sadness, he felt deep gratitude for the journey, for the slow mornings, the difficult nights, the small disciplined choices that once seemed meaningless, but had quietly rebuilt his future piece by piece. He understood now that transformation is never sudden from the inside. It feels slow, repetitive, even boring at times. But when you look back after months or years, the distance becomes undeniable, and the person you once were feels like someone you gently outgrew. If you are still here listening, it means something in this story is connected to your own life. Maybe a dream you keep delaying, maybe a risk you are afraid to take, maybe a quiet voice inside you asking for more. And this is the moment to listen to that voice instead of silencing it again. You do not need a perfect plan, perfect confidence, or perfect timing. Because perfection is another form of comfort that keeps people waiting forever. What you need is one honest step forward, taken even while you feel unsure. Because movement creates clarity that thinking alone never will. Daniel's journey kept unfolding in ways he could never have predicted. New goals replaced old ones. Deeper purpose replaced simple ambition. And he discovered that growth is not a destination you reach once. It is a lifelong path that keeps expanding as long as you continue walking. The peace he felt now was not fragile, like comfort. It was steady, built on effort, self-respect, and the knowledge that he was no longer wasting the life he had been given. And perhaps the most meaningful part of his story was this. He realized that anyone could begin the same journey at any moment, regardless of age, past mistakes, or current limitations, because the door out of comfort is always open from the inside. Before the story fully ends, take a quiet second and ask yourself one honest question. If nothing changes in your life for the next 5 years, will you feel proud of the path you've stayed on? Or will you wish you had taken a brave step today? Because your answer to that question holds more power than any motivational speech ever could. If this message touched your heart even slightly, write "I choose growth" in the comments to make a small promise to yourself, and share this story with someone who feels stuck. Because one reminder at the right moment can change a direction that seemed permanent. Daniel once believed comfort was protecting his future, but in truth it was slowly erasing it. And the day he chose discomfort with purpose was the day his real life finally began. Your story is still being written right now, in the choices you make after this moment, in the courage you decide to use or ignore, and in whether you remain where it feels safe or step toward what feels meaningful. The beautiful, hopeful truth is simple. Your future has not been destroyed unless you decide to stop trying. And as long as you are willing to take one small step beyond comfort today, a completely different life is still possible for you. And maybe the most honest truth of all is that life rarely announces the moments that matter most. There is no loud signal telling you that this is the decision that will shape your future. No clear sign showing which small action will quietly change the direction of your entire life. Because real change hides inside ordinary days, inside choices that feel small while you are making them. And that is why so many people miss the turning points that were always within reach. Daniel understood this now, in a way he never could before. He saw how close he had come to living a life that looked safe from the outside but empty on the inside. A life where years pass without memory strong enough to feel meaningful. And that realization filled him not with regret, but with responsibility. Because once you see the truth clearly, you also see that your future is shaped by what you choose next. He began using his story to quietly encourage others, not with perfect words or dramatic speeches, but with honesty, telling them that courage does not feel heroic in the beginning. It feels uncomfortable, uncertain, and sometimes lonely. Yet those uncomfortable first steps carry a power that comfort never will. Some people listened and changed. Others smiled politely and stayed the same. And Daniel learned another important lesson. You cannot force someone to leave their comfort zone. You can only show them that a different life is possible, and the decision must always come from within. As years continued to move forward, success grew in ways that once felt impossible. But what mattered most to him was not achievement. It was freedom. The freedom to wake up with purpose, to move without regret, to know that he was using the time he had instead of slowly losing it. And that kind of freedom cannot be bought or given. It can only be built through courage repeated day after day. Sometimes he still felt fear about the future, but now fear felt different. It no longer stopped him. It guided him toward the places where growth was waiting. And he realized that the goal of life is not to eliminate fear, but to become brave enough that fear no longer decides your direction. If you are hearing these words right now, this is more than just the ending of a story. It is a quiet mirror being held in front of your own life, asking you gently but honestly whether you are moving toward the future you truly want, or slowly settling for the comfort that asks for nothing and gives even less. There is still time to choose differently, still time to begin again, still time to take the small step you have been delaying, because the power of your future has never been in perfect conditions. It has always been in your willingness to act, even when conditions are not perfect. One day, years from now, you will look back at this season of your life and realize that either this was the time you stayed comfortable and unchanged, or this was the moment you finally decided to grow. And the difference between those two futures begins with something incredibly small. The decision you make after this very moment ends. So before this story fades into silence, hold on to one simple reminder. Comfort may feel peaceful today, but courage is what creates a life you can truly respect tomorrow. If this journey meant something to you, write "My future starts now" in the comments as a promise to yourself, and share this message with someone who needs the strength to take their first step. Because sometimes a single story, heard at the right time, becomes the beginning of a completely new direction. And wherever you are in your life right now, no matter how late it feels, no matter how far your dreams seem, remember this quiet but powerful truth. Your comfort zone only wins if you never choose to leave it. And the moment you decide to step beyond it, even slowly, even imperfectly, your future begins to rebuild itself in ways more beautiful than you can imagine today. And in the quiet rhythm of passing time, Daniel discovered something even deeper than success or confidence. He discovered meaning, the kind of meaning that does not depend on applause, comparison, or temporary results, but grows from knowing that each day you are becoming a little more honest with your own potential. Life did not suddenly become easy, and it never was supposed to, because ease was never the destination he was truly searching for. What he had been searching for all along was a life that felt real, a life where effort had direction, where struggle had purpose, and where time was no longer slipping away unnoticed. There were still uncertain seasons, moments when progress slowed, moments when new challenges appeared without warning. Yet instead of feeling lost like before, he now felt grounded, because he trusted the process that had already carried him this far. He understood that growth is not a straight line. It moves forward, pauses, sometimes even feels like it moves backward, but every sincere step still shapes the person you are becoming. Looking back, the years he once called comfortable now seem strangely distant, almost unreal, like a quiet dream where nothing truly happened. And that realization filled him with a powerful sense of urgency to live fully in the present, to speak the words that matter, to attempt the things that scare him, and to use the limited time he had in a way that would one day make him proud to remember. What surprised him most was how ordinary the turning point had really been. There was no perfect day, no dramatic rescue, only a simple decision repeated quietly until it became a new life. And that truth changed the way he saw everyone around him, because he realized that countless people are standing only one brave decision away from a completely different future. Yet they keep waiting for confidence instead of building it through action. If you feel something moving inside you while hearing this, even something small and difficult to explain, do not ignore it, because awareness is often the first whisper of change. And the future you want begins the moment you choose to listen to that whisper instead of silencing it again. You do not need to transform your whole life tonight. You only need one honest step, one choice that moves you slightly closer to the person you want to become. Because small steps, taken consistently, create distances that once felt impossible. Daniel eventually understood that the real opposite of comfort is not discomfort, it is growth. And growth carries a quiet joy that comfort can never give. The joy of progress, the joy of courage, the joy of becoming someone your past self desperately needed. And maybe that is the true reason this story found its way to you today. Not just to inspire you for a moment, but to remind you that your life is still unfolding, still waiting, still full of unwritten chapters that only your courage can reveal. Before these words finally come to an end, pause for just a second and imagine the version of yourself 5 years from now. Imagine the way that future version would thank you for the brave decision you choose today, because that future is not created by luck. It is created by the quiet promises you decide to keep starting now. If this story stayed with you until the very last moment, it means you are not someone who wants to sleep through life anymore. It means a part of you is ready to grow, ready to move, ready to step beyond the invisible walls that once felt permanent. So write "I am ready" in the comments as a message to your future self. And share this story with someone whose life could change with a single reminder. Because sometimes, the smallest spark of courage, shared at the right time, becomes the beginning of a transformation no one thought possible. And always remember this gentle but powerful truth. Your comfort zone may feel like home, but your real life begins the moment you decide to walk beyond it. And that moment, quietly and beautifully, can start right now. And in the end, the most powerful realization Daniel carried with him was surprisingly simple. The life he once feared chasing was never as dangerous as the comfort he once refused to leave. Because comfort slowly takes your dreams without asking, while courage, even when painful, slowly gives your life back to you. Years after that first small decision to wake up earlier and try again, he understood that the true victory was never a single achievement or moment of recognition. It was the quiet transformation of becoming someone who no longer runs away from growth, someone who no longer waits for perfect timing, someone who chooses meaning even when meaning requires effort. He learned that the future is not something that suddenly appears one day. It is something built quietly in mornings, when no one is watching, in choices that feel small but honest, in moments when quitting would be easier, but continuing feels more true. And maybe the reason this story stayed with you until now is because a part of your heart already knows this truth. Maybe you have felt the weight of staying the same. Maybe you have sensed that you were meant for more than routine, more than delay, more than a life that feels safe but unfinished. The beautiful thing about this moment is that nothing extraordinary is required to begin. You do not need perfect confidence, perfect clarity, or perfect strength. You only need willingness, the simple courage to take one step that your comfort has been quietly asking you to avoid. Because the distance between the life you have and the life you want is often smaller than it feels. It is hidden inside daily decisions, hidden inside discipline, hidden inside the quiet promise to not give up on yourself again. Daniel's story does not truly end here, because growth never really ends. But this chapter closes with something more valuable than an ending. It closes with an invitation, an open door standing in front of your own future right now. One day you will look back at this exact season of your life and realize it was either the time you finally stepped forward, or the time you decided to stay where it was comfortable, and that future memory is being shaped by what you choose after hearing these words. So before we part, hold on to this one lasting truth. Your comfort zone can delay your life, but it can never destroy it unless you allow it to. And the moment you decide to move, even slowly, even imperfectly, your future begins to breathe again. If this journey meant something to you, take 1 second to like this video and subscribe to English. And write in the comments today, I step forward as a quiet promise to yourself. Because promises spoken aloud have the power to become real. Share this story with someone who feels stuck. Someone who has forgotten their strength. Someone who only needs a small reminder to begin again. Because sometimes a single story, arriving at the right time, becomes the first step toward a completely different life. And wherever you are right now, however late it feels, however far your dreams seem, remember this gentle, hopeful truth that will always remain. Your future is not written by your past comfort. It is written by the courage you choose next. And that courage, quietly and beautifully, can begin right now.